You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Termina هناك لشوارزنيجر جول.
Va a pegar el Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Happy Hump Day, everyone. Before we get going today, Kevin, I did want to spare a moment. And if you were reading me on Twitter yesterday, you'll know about this. Or if you just watched the news out of Toronto yesterday, I'm going after we finish the show. I go straight across St. Clair Avenue to get to my office where I do my social media work for the afternoons. And as I'm going there, I see this dark billowing smoke coming out from what looks like scallywags. The infamous sometimes, an iconic soccer bar here in Toronto. You've heard me mention it before. It's the Toronto home of the Voyageurs.
Met the owners a few times. We both met the owners a few times. So
exactly, it's well known within its soccer circles. Actually, I was there 2 days ago. I watched the Manchester City game there because it's close to where I work. So I zipped in after because I was up against it to see it. And, there was a guy that literally stepped in that was on a holiday from England. He had been there many years before, and he went out of his way just to go back because he had such a good time at this bar the day he was there. It's always sort of one of those places that's unique in North America, and other big cities have bars like this where fans of all different teams can come and gather, and the banter's in there, and it's just a fun place. At any rate, there was a massive fire right behind it at the Toronto Racket and Badminton Club. It's a sort of exclusive fitness club for the wealthy is what that was. But at any rate, it burnt to the ground yesterday. We don't know what's happening with Scallywags. It was closed. It was evacuated yesterday. The smoke was billowing right over its patio. I have fears that there's going to be some smoke damage there. So I'll keep you updated on that and whether there's any efforts to help that ownership out. Hopefully their insurance will cover whatever damage it's there. But it looks like Scally's might be closed for a little while, and that's a sad thing for the Toronto soccer scene. And like I said, the dude from England came to say hi the day that I was there the day before. So a well-known soccer bar, and I think we all of us that listen to shows like this are familiar with places like that, and we'll wish them well, Kevin.
exactly. Speaking of wishing them well, Duane, we have a little bit of I wouldn't go as far as saying breaking news, but I have to say it checked on multiple sources on your side, and you have some interesting, let's call it rumors right now for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Yeah, and look, to be clear, I'm not the only person reporting this right now, but I did confirm it for my people. Atiba Hutchinson has been offered a DP contract by the Whitecaps. Now, whether or not he chooses to accept this is up in the air, and it will happen at the end of the end of his season at Turkey is what it would happen. I mean, it's unlikely that he would come in for the start of the season. This would be a mid-season kind of a replacement. There's other news to talk about the Whitecaps, and we're going to sort of do a Whitecaps segment to start the show today. But I thought we'd start with that. Mark Weber was the first to sort of bring this up, and I suspect that Mark was getting hints that they were doing this, so he put the teaser out there for his blog post to talk about the possibility of a fit of Atiba Hutchinson, and here it is so far. As I said, it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire. Not that's kind of a bad analogy considering the start of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on.
Yeah, moving past that. But nonetheless, it seems like there might be there. When there's there, it's there, right? There's there.
Well, we talked about it a few weeks ago, Duane, didn't you? When we talked about the possibility of Atiba leaving Turkey for not just soccer reasons, but when we talk about what's going on in Turkey, the political and especially social life right now, how it's happening in cities around Turkey. It's not the safest place to play soccer right now. And it was a question. It was up for debate, and Atiba was not vague, but he wasn't committed to his future after this summer. So there was a lot of possibilities for Atiba to return to North America.
Yeah, no, as I said, to repeat that, if you didn't hear it real quickly, when I spoke to him in December, he said that he was open to coming back, that he felt that he was proud of what he'd done in Turkey. And, he's won several Canadian Player of the Year over there. He's made the Champions League, won the title. He's done a lot of things in Turkey, but the situation, of course, is in turmoil. And maybe if the political situation wasn't so poor, he might be willing to stay for a little while longer. But to come back and get a paycheck in his home country is something I think that would probably be appealing to anyone. I think it would be appealing to Canadian national team fans because I do believe that if he is playing in Vancouver or in Canada anywhere, but in Vancouver, as the rumors suggest, that he'd be more likely to stick around for the duration of his contract here to play internationally with Canada, because the burden wouldn't be quite as bad. It's very difficult for these guys to sort of up and root themselves from Europe to get back and then back to Europe. But if they're over here already, I should say, then that makes things a little easier and makes his decision, which he has not made a decision internationally, to continue a little easier. The fit in Vancouver is an interesting one to me. Batista Laba plays a similar role. He has in the past been, close to all-star caliber for the Whitecaps. Still lamented poorly here by TFC fans that they let him go. That might, if he had a poor season last year, though, I think Laba did, and maybe this is a signal that they feel that he's peaked and that they need to address that sixth position with someone who has a little bit more better ball skills, a little bit more better passing skills that can get into more of an 8 than a 6. But I think Atiba probably is a 6, and sort of play that role there. What are your thoughts on his fit with the Whitecaps, Kevin?
Well, or not, yeah. If he fits or not, it's not really a problem for me, because Atiba is the type of player that you can just change your tactics, change the way you play if you have to fit him, to make sure that he has the space necessary, the way to run things. We talk a lot about Conte since he joined Chelsea, Duane. I'm not going to make a comparison that Atiba is the Conte of the Whitecaps, but that could be the case. A player in an unsung role that with an MLS type of team, he's so efficient that he actually comes to fruition and you see what he's doing. And that's controlling the midfield, getting the ball, crossing that midfield point, getting the ball up in control, and having the opportunity to, at the same time, reassure the defenses when there's a big breakthrough on the other side.
Yeah, look, and I would view Atiba's role with the Whitecaps would likely come somewhere similar to what Michael Bradley's role with TFC is. And, I hate to bring it back to a CFC comparison. If you're a Whitecaps fan, it's not me trying to be Toronto-centric. It's just that Bradley plays such a unique kind of role that it's difficult to compare him to other players in Major League Soccer. He's not an 8 and he's not a 6. He's something in between. And that really is, I think, what Atiba might do. He might be leaning more on the 6 side than the 8 side, whereas Bradley leans more on the 8 side than the 6 side. But I do think that that's kind of the role you'd see him play, because I do believe that Atiba, as we've seen him in CONCACAF with Canada before, has the ability to get a little bit more forward, get a little bit more into the attack, a little bit more a part of that, and particularly on the passing side of the ball. And he's not going to score a lot of goals for you, but he will contribute quite a bit. He did score a goal when he was onside, clearly, in the Gold Cup in 2008 or 7, pardon me, but it's maybe time to move that on. Atiba was onside. Sorry, I can't. Yes. I just can't get past that.
Well, you're probably going to get some pictures now, some gift that maybe he wasn't. But anyways, I'm on your side on that one, by the way. I'm just saying for devil's advocate's sakes. But when you look at Atiba, if he comes to North America, if he comes to the Whitecaps, I think it will help, like you mentioned, the national team, because of his freedom. Do you give him the same freedom that he has in the national team to, when he does see the space going forward, to go for it? I think you kind of have to, even though at the Champions League level and Turkey level right now, he is more used as a 6 and more defensive responsibilities. If the move do come that he comes to Vancouver, do you give him more freedom? Do you you know what? We're not going to rein you in. You're going to have some responsibilities, obviously, but we're not going to give you so much responsibilities that you forget, or you don't give yourself the chance to go forward and to try that shot from 30, or maybe get even closer to get that final pass. So for Atiba, like you mentioned, he would be prolific in the assists. If there was the second assist and the third assist, he would have amazing statistics, but because it's not the case in soccer, he doesn't have those statistics. But it's interesting to me how you adjust your tactics. Do you give him that freedom?
Yeah, look, and you have to be careful to a certain extent. You don't want to get players completely out of their comfort zone. To make another comparison with a former TFC player, a former national team player, more to the point, that would have came in with a very similar role in Julian de Guzman back in the latter part of the first part of this decade. I guess de Guzman was, I think, pushed out of his comfort zone in Major League Soccer, and that created a situation where he failed, where he didn't do very well, and the fans got on him, and there's a lot of factors involved with that. I don't think it would quite be the same in Vancouver, but nonetheless, you want to make sure that you're utilizing these guys to their best of the ability. Even Bradley, to go back to that comparison, I think in his first season, 2014, TFC struggled to find him the right role, and it wasn't until really maybe even the start of this past season where Toronto figured it out and figured out how to use Bradley and how to effectively use Bradley, and I Thibaut would have to take some time to tweak and figure out some stuff. Ideally, you'd like to probably have both him and Laba out there, which would, again, push him a little further up the field and a little more into the attack than just strictly being a ball sweeper upper and doing things. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, technically, the reason why, Duane, we feel that it's going to happen, as well as the Whitecaps got in the allocation spot, the top spot, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, no, although, look, that's what I originally thought, Kevin, but and I told you that, so that's me. But yeah, it's actually they used the allocation spot to get Freddie Montero, and that makes sense because the Thibaut wouldn't have to go through the allocation order because that's not part of the situation. As a Canadian international, he don't have to go through. You're just coming in as a DP signing.
So Freddie Montero now with the Whitecaps. Interesting. The Seattle superstar, the Seattle legend, basically in the early days of the Sounders in Major League Soccer, now playing for the Cascadia rival, or the third wheel of the Cascadia rival, the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Yes, which will probably spice up that rivalry a little bit for sure. I did watch some. It's official now. It came down the pipe. It's a loan, a 1-year loan. He's coming in. I'm not too sure on the salary level. It didn't seem like a DP contract to me, but I'd have to look that back up to make 100% sure. So don't quote me on that one. But the trade was pretty significant. Vancouver gave up an international spot, which they used to collect, like, I don't know, what do you collect nowadays? Hockey cards, baseball cards? I don't know, whatever.
Whatever. You can collect whatever, Duane. There's people collecting anything, I think, today.
Yeah, well, the Whitecaps used to collect international spots, and I used to criticize them for that. But they actually gave one up today, which is one other indication that they might be willing to move a Canadian in, nonetheless. They gave him a plus to combine $225,000 in allocation between TAM and GAM. It's 100 and 125, 125 on the GAM, 100 on the TAM. That's a significant price to pay for that allocation spot. So the Whitecaps are clearly looking at Montero as being the answer for them. As many people have pointed out, Extra Time Radio, for one, if you want to listen to their show yesterday where they talk about this in pretty good detail off the top, this is a strange move for the Whitecaps because they have several like players, including the Peruvian guy that they brought in this year. They're both kind of what we call second forwards. They're closer to a false nine than they would be to a full nine, although I wouldn't call Montero a false nine necessarily, but nonetheless, that's kind of where they play. And what the Whitecaps really lack right now is hell, I'll continue my TFC analogy. They lack a Josie. They lack a guy that can sort of be the muscle up front that can kind of create that attention to draw away and allow the space for these creative little guys to maneuver behind them.
They lack a nine.
They can then create.
They lack a nine, basically. Not a false one. They just lack a pure all-out striker.
Yeah, and that leads into another linkage that they had been attached to Aaron Johansson, the U.S. international, who might be able to play that role. I'm not sure whether he would be at DP caliber in MLS, although he is an international. But the fact that they just gave up the number one allocation order, like they purchased Montero or run in loan, so they're no longer number one in allocation, they'd be last. Actually, he would need to go through the allocation order. It doesn't even suggest, it pretty much spells it out in bold red ink that they're not in that mix anymore. And if Johansson's going to come to Major League Soccer, it probably isn't going to be with the Whitecaps. And there is an argument to make that that's kind of who they might have needed. It's not going to be as sexy as Freddie, because Freddie did have the 3-time MLS MVP, as the Whitecaps are proclaiming in their press releases today. But I kind of think that maybe a player like Johansson might have been the better pick up for them. Might have been more what they needed if they trust the Peruvian kid that they brought in. And I don't know enough about him to know. You know what?
It's probably is, Dwayne. You remember when Toronto had the possibility to sign, I think it was Bradley that came first, or Jersey, out of the blue, and Tim Bezpachenko just jumped on it. Okay, I think it's kind of like that situation. Maybe the technical director of the Vancouver Whitecaps and Robo and Bob Lenarduzzi got offered the chance. Look, maybe you can have Montero. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do it, and we'll figure it out after. It is a decision that is coming. We've heard about it, 2 days ago started? And we just heard before that the Whitecaps were real. I don't know why I keep saying the Whitecaps. I don't know what's with me today. Maybe I speak German in my sleep. I don't know. But the Whitecaps, the Whitecaps, Vancouver, the Whitecaps, they had maybe the chance to sign that striker, him, because they were looking hard for one. They were literally making every calls, calling everybody they know. Do you have a 9? Do you have a 9? And somebody's like, well, maybe we can get you Montero. Okay, do it. Then we'll figure it out after.
Yeah. Look, there's a couple angles on this signing, obviously, and maybe we'll explore the Seattle side of this in the days ahead. That would be an interesting conversation to have with one of our Seattle friends about what they're feeling about this in terms of the rivalry. It's good to have Montero back in the league, but as I said the other day when the rumors surfaced, I think we need to be careful to recognize that this is a guy that's several years older now, and he hasn't necessarily scored at the same level he did when he was in Major League Soccer, where he was a very exciting young prospect. This guy debuted in 2019. That would have been a very old player at that point. He debuted in 2008, so that's a while ago now. That's nearly 10 years. So he's not a kid no more. The other angle on this, real quickly, before we take the break and finish with I guess a look at the Barcelona yesterday and a few other things, is the Minnesota side of things. They're once again, they brought in some allocation that they're now dumping around. They just continue to exist in this bubble where they don't believe they need to use allocation and GAM and TAM and things like that to make big signings. And I'm on record of saying I think that's going to work, but we'll see. And if I'm wrong and Minnesota has a solid season, then eggs on my face, Kevin.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We'll probably talk more about Minnesota in the upcoming few weeks, especially that side, how they built their roster, having a lot of times heading into the season, starting almost a year ago, to thinking about which player they will bring up and how they would do so. It's a little bit lackluster when you did have that amount of time before you actually get to today.
All right, let's take a break. Come back. We'll wrap the Champions League up and have a few bits and bytes.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And as I said, we're back. Where are we going to...
Duane, by the way, I didn't tell you this. I have audio from the game yesterday in Paris.
Oh, okay.
Here, this is how it sounded. Actually, we're going live to Paris in a second, Duane, right now. This is the story of the game right here.
Yeah, the Benny Hill theme.
Exactly.
It's funny. We had legitimate talks one day to try and figure out a way in the final game of the 2014 season at TFC to have that play in the stadium for the entire duration of the second half, but we couldn't figure out how to do it. Anyway, that
it's kind of hard to play. It's kind of hard to play for a long period of time.
Yeah, well, you would have drove people nuts. I just we could play during Argos games. Actually, that's a dream. Can anyone get some big speakers and just blast them? And never mind, that would probably be illegal.
On the
I
loop.
didn't say that, but if anyone does, it'd be funny.
Like the guy who lives in the condo next door is right. His balcony is almost over BMO Field. You put some speakers out on your balcony.
I'm sure that the condo, board would love that. Anyway, oh dear. All right, yeah, Barcelona. Where do you even go with that, Kevin? I mean, look,
Cavani's
4-0.
left foot, 4-0 on the free kick. Cavani. That's how the game started to. That's how the floodgates open. Cavani on a free kick. Cavani. Di Maria's left kick. Di Maria's left foot that had got me all frazzled yesterday, Dwayne. That's me. I love free kicks. That free kick goal, and then he's open, just curls it on the other corner. Both corners in the game. 2 goals, 4-0. Barcelona was not Barcelona yesterday.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of people that are trying to proclaim this the end of the era at Barcelona, and look, I don't think that you can look at the top talent that they have, the Suarez, the Neymar, the Messi, obviously, and criticize them too much. That is, to this point, there's no doubt about it. I think that's the most dangerous top attacking line that you'll find in the world football, maybe in of all time, even in some cases, or at least in the last decade or so. But when you look at the rest of Barcelona's starting 11, it's just not the glory days anymore, right? Like, Viesta's old. Their players have retired. They don't have the back. Like the fullbacks are struggling in that system right now. And we're seeing how important the fullbacks are to the system that Barcelona wants to play. See that with Pep and City as well, right?
You know what I just imagined, Dwayne? You know what I just figured it out? Barcelona is an MLS type of roster on steroids. You got your 3 DPs, Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. And then you got the rest of the squad. That's just a little bit of a notch down. Don't cost as much money because it's really top heavy. But I think it's that reality that's starting to catch up to Barcelona. They give so much money to those 3 that, well, at the end of the day, even though you make billions, it might not be enough to pay the rest of the squad.
Well, yeah, and then they had to let their TAM player, Dani Alves, go, right? And his loss was really evident yesterday in terms of them getting killed down that right flank all game. And that's something that you really, as I said, the fullbacks are so vital to how they want to play. You need guys that can get in that attack and create the havoc and create the pressure, because Barcelona really defends with the ball. That's how they defend. That's how this system is designed to work. It's a defensive system in many ways, but it relies on having the ability of your all 11 players basically to handle the ball, control the ball, and to keep the ball away from the opposition, to wear them down until finally you break them down with your top flight attacking power that you do have there. But as I said, when you have vulnerabilities, you can be exposed. And look, I keep bringing this back to teams that I follow more closely today, but there's an obvious comparison here because of Pep. City's problems this year have really emerged from the fact that Sange and Zabaleta is old, and that they just don't have fullbacks anymore that can play the style that he wants to play. And I think that Alves is really a guy that has missed a great deal. And I'm not sure in the summer we would have necessarily, or sorry, in the transfer window, we would have necessarily thought that, Kevin.
No, it's very fascinating. And so 4-0 for Paris yesterday in the Champions League. The other game, Benfica Dortmund. You know what is interesting, Duane? Dortmund had all the chances to go back and get that goal. They had that penalty. Aubameyang really mishit, and he's sent it straight down the middle. But this isn't FIFA 17. The goalkeeper don't necessarily always jump. They wait for you to make the move. Save. And they had other chances. They missed him. Pulisic with a great shot from about 20 yards away. It was saved again by Benfica's goalkeeper. Benfica, the 1-0 win at home. Maybe Benfica will finally this year get some. Maybe they will get to the quarters with this performance.
Yeah.
But Dortmund at home, it's still just 1 goal for Benfica. But Dortmund had the chances and they couldn't get the goal back on the road.
Yeah, Benfica's 1 quarter full, I think, is what their glass is right now. They would have wanted to win by a couple of goals. Obviously, you want to win by 4. That would be ideal. But you want to at least win 2-0 at home. And they did keep, but the quarter full is the fact that they did keep Dortmund off the scoreboard, so that if they themselves can find a goal on the road in Germany, then maybe they have a chance here. But I still would put Dortmund at about a 75% chance to advance in this tie. Whereas Barcelona, what would you put them at, like 2%? Like you never know with the firepower they have, but it seems
Yeah.
highly unlikely that.
But they have to score 4 just to push overtime. So they let down 1, then they're in deep because they have to score 6 at home at Barca at the Canu. So yeah, it is a big hole for Barcelona. That's why Paris Saint-Germain was so happy yesterday. That's why they celebrated like they won the league, because it's the biggest obstacle. Well, kind of. You might still have a Madrid or a Munich to face down the road, but it's the one elephant that was always in the room and was always killing PSG in the last few years. And there's a stat that it might be ominous to what's to come. Maybe Duane. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, when he left Inter, what happened the season after? They won the Champions League. And exactly. And the same thing happened when he left. I forget. And then this time around, he's going to leave PSG. And maybe PSG will win the Champions League this year.
It's possible, but you do have some powerhouses in there. Uwe, I think, will be heard of in this competition. Atletico Madrid has proven time and again over the last 3 or 4 years that they're not to be taken lightly in the competition. Bayern Munich still in it. Real Madrid, of course. So there's still lots of obstacles to overcome, even if they do push the big bad Barca out at this stage. Is it? Yeah. Well, we'll finish with this. I hate to make grand sweeping statements, but we do have to have some hot takes. We are a show that requires some opinion here. But is it the end of an era at Barcelona? I tend to think probably not that dramatic, but I do think maybe we need to see some significant changes in terms of the roster moving forward in this particular case, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't think it's the end of an era. I think it's the end of some of the players that are playing there, of their consistent playing time. I think that's what's going to need to change.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And I think Ranieri really nailed it on the head this week when he was talking to the media. And I think the same could be said for Barcelona at this point. It's on steroid again, but that analogy makes sense. When you're a coach and you're with a group of players that you had a lot of success, that out of nowhere you could trusted them and they would give you the success you wanted, the result you wanted, the performance you wanted, the output that you expected of him. So when you have that level of trust, that level of experience and chemistry with a player as a coach, and you always pick them, they always give you what you want, it's hard sometimes to change that stance, to be like, you know what, you're always like, well, I'm going to give him another chance because he's going to give it to me. He always used to do it. And eventually you're like, well, you're past the point where, no, okay, I need to make changes now. And I think that's maybe what that 4-0 defeat on the road for Barcelona means. It's just maybe they need to start looking at some pieces that needs to not play as much.
Yeah, and look, this isn't a debate for today, but the other conversation that this is starting is whether or not this might put a little crack in the door of Barcelona agreeing to sell Messi. And the only reason they would do that, because Messi is so iconic in there, and I've talked to people that live in Barcelona, and they tell me that they just can't even comprehend the idea, because he's that city. He is that city, right? So if they were to move on from him, I think would very much have to be from him. And the idea that's being bandied about today is that maybe if this does in fact represent the changing of a guard at Barcelona, where they have to sort of go through a rebuilding process, insofar as Barca rebuilds, like we're talking about, maybe they take a step back and they allow themselves to finish second in La Liga for a couple of years while they retool. If that were to happen, maybe Messi wants to go challenge himself in England, and that would probably be the likely destination for him. And I think I know where he might be targeted, but that's
taking the place of Gabriel Jesus because he's gone for 3 months.
2 to 3 months, apparently. That's,
yeah, broken metatarsal. By the way, that's a big blow. But did you see that meme of Aguero knocking on the door yesterday?
Yeah, exactly. All right. That's real quickly on today. Obviously, I think the Napoli Real Madrid game is the game most people are going to pay attention to. A lot of interest there. That actually, when the draw was made, was the tie that grabbed me the most. Well, obviously Monaco City, but that's for my own personal reasons. But that Real Madrid Napoli tie is an interesting one to me. Do you think that the Bayern Arsenal has any influence at all? Anything you want to see in that one, Kev?
I don't know. We'll see how Arsenal approach this game. They have to put their A lineup, but they're struggling in the league as we speak. Well, it's all relative, right? They're struggling compared to the teams around them on the table. They're not struggling compared to like a Leicester City. Everything's relative in life. It's all relative. But for Arsenal, they have to focus on the league. So how they approach this game against Bayern on the road will be interesting. Wenger, a lot of talks of Wenger. Again, his contract finishes at the end of the season. What's going to happen after? I think results in the Champions League could help his case. This game is very important. But Real Madrid, Napoli, Duane, Cristiano Ronaldo is on a very big goal drought. When it's like Cristiano Ronaldo, like it's not a goal drought per se if it was any other player in the world, but for him it's a Champions League goal drought. And I think he's gonna come into this game having the whole winter break thinking about scoring in the Champions League. Yeah, probably score a few today. And it probably won't be pretty, even though I kind of hope Napoli can pull off a good game.
Well, it's a tough place to go play. So I'll say that Napoli is a decent side. The reason it grabbed my attention was because it just seems like that's the type of tie where an upset is possible. I'm not sure that Arsenal has the horses to take down Bayern Munich, even though on paper, perhaps that is the better of the two matchups. I just kind of like Napoli's chances if they catch Real Madrid in an off game. And I think a lot of people, neutrals for sure, will be cheering for Napoli because it would be amazing to get the two Spanish giants out of this tournament. It will make it wide open at that point, although I think Bayern Munich would then become the favorite. But it would be a very interesting sort of dynamic to go into. All right, a couple quick bits and bites to end the show today. I did want to talk. There's an interesting move. City focus today here anyway, but the NYCFC has signed a player on loan, Yohel Herrera, who comes from Venezuela, was a big player in the U23 championship down there, a really dominant player there. Manchester City had just signed him. They signed him like this month, but immediately loaned him to NYCFC. There was some confusion at first that it was actually City Football Group that purchased him, although in England that's no longer legal. You can't have third-party ownership, and that would have been considered a third-party ownership. So it is, in fact, Man City that has purchased him. But he is, as I said, he's not even going to set foot in Manchester. He's going to go straight to New York and play there. This has caused a lot of people in MLS circles to start, mashing their hands together and getting all upset again about, them being a little sister club or whatever they want to call it of Man City. But when I look at a move like this is a guy that, the same people that will get all up in air over the fact Man City's loaning academy player, a young signing player to NYCFC will be the same people that will be talking up, an NCAA draft pick. The reality is this at a much higher level, that this is a very smart move for NYCFC to be taking full advantage of the City Football Group. And you may not necessarily like the fact that they're attached to a big name overseas, but the reality is there are inherent advantages to that situation. And this is one. There's no damn way that NYCFC is signing a top player at the South American Under-23 Championships, not without significant money outlay. They are getting a competitive advantage by bringing a guy in here who, based on his play in South America, would be getting anyone anywhere else very excited about this signing. Because he's coming from CFG, people are like, oh, I don't know. Like, they're being forced on this guy.
But Duane, what did they expect? Like, you let the City Football Group buy a team in your league, and you've seen them manage in Australia and other. They're going to use that to put their best players or put players they want to see develop, or their coaches, like in Vieira. They're going to use it. It's an asset to them to better their product at the top level. And having for them a team there, it's the brand present in a different market. Branding is production, so we understand that. But on the football operation part, they're going to use it because it's possible to them. It's pushing and it's winning at all costs. Those mentalities are going to make them use the avenues that they have to better their players, and it's one of them. So why would you be surprised?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. I'm actually thinking it's a positive move like you, because it is a group that, it has money, it has a business, and it has some corporate agenda on one side to make money and to further their brand. That's Fine, but we're not talking about this. We're talking about the football operation. And on the football operation side, it's good for the benefit of the game, for the benefit of development. If you figure out how to develop players constantly and that blueprint can be replicated across the world, well, we're just going to have better soccer players. And is there something wrong with that? I don't think so.
Yeah, this is a guy that City Football Group or Manchester City paid a transfer fee for that's not going to be put on the MLS books. So in many ways, they're getting an end around the MLS rules here because they're getting loaned a player back from City. Now, there's probably some provisions in place, and God knows because it's Major League Soccer and they're not transparent about this completely, but I'm sure that there is some level of allocation being paid to pay some form of a loan fee to bring him over, but it's not going to be anywhere close to what the transfer would have been, which is why this is a player that would not have been possible probably for NYCFC to bring in unless they used him or something. So you really, if you're an NYCFC fan out there, I think you should be very excited about this signing. I think this is a signing that would be getting a lot of attention if he wasn't doing the end around and coming as a loan and having that sort of baggage, if you wish, attached to it of coming from Man City. So it's just an interesting move that's kind of flying under the radar right now. Obviously, I pay more attention to this stuff because of my biases and my, partisanship. But nonetheless, I do think that Herrera, who may never play for Manchester City because they're beginning to do the same thing Chelsea does, and they're beginning to have a loan army. But it is a talented player.
Stop feeling bad about always talking about City and stuff. It's the world of soccer is so big, okay? It's like when you're inside a house and you're looking through the window, but you choose your window in today's world. So we choose to talk about those a little bit more. Same for the Montreal Impact, Toronto teams that we cover more. And that's what we do, Duane.
All right, fair enough. Speaking of City,
but that's enough.
Carly Lloyd. Yeah, look, this one's relevant in any level. If you want to talk about women's football, and we do in the show, obviously, Carly Lloyd is going to sign with the Manchester City Women's Football Club. This is a very interesting move, both from a Man City women's team, because what they've done in a very short order of time is really gone from nothing. They were a team playing in the second or third tier of women's football, kind of just an amateur side, and they've gone in a very short period of time, used the financial might of City Football Group to develop one of the best women's teams in England, and
Duane,
perhaps
they went undefeated in 2016. They ran the gamut on the table, undefeated, and that is not a small task. And you added Carly Lloyd. This team is going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah, and their goal and their stated goal since they bought this is what pisses people off, is because there's technically pro rel within the women's game in England, but you can purchase your spot, and City did. They purchased their spot in the top flight. And, that may not make you feel comfortable if you're a purist, and I understand that. But the reality is that once they purchase that spot, they have, in fact, taken advantage of it. And if you are someone who believes in the growth or wants to see the growth of the women's game in Europe, I think it's hard to really be too critical about the ambition, the clear ambition that Manchester City is making with their women's side. And Lloyd is Player of the Year. Controversially this year, but nonetheless, the legitimate Player of the Year in 2015, coming into that team, want to be the best women's team in the world. I don't know how you can be critical of Manchester City, of City Football Group, of wanting to have the best women's team in the world. How can you be critical of that?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the U.S. women's national team and the U.S. men's national team, they have a new kit that was announced on Valentine's Day. It's all red, everything. And you can let us know what you think in the comment section below. For Duane Rollins, I am Kevin Laramee. Stay tuned to Soccer Day tomorrow, a special U20 conversation with Daniel Squizzato of MLSsoccer.com and other places. For Duane Rollins at 24th Minute, I am Kevin Laramee at Kev Laramee. Until tomorrow, 10 a.m., you have today a few MLS preseason games, by the way, but the Montreal Impact facing Dax McCarthy and the Chicago Fire in Tampa Bay. And until tomorrow, have a great soccer. You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.